A very underrated gameplay mechanic is being able to make choices and having said choices affect you or the world. This type of mechanic can be pretty vast, so I made a scale to show off the different types. Here we have a scale from pointless to great choices, and along the way I will be naming games that fit into said categories. Firstly, we have Dying Light 2 being in pointless. I've talked about it before, so if you know anything about this game, it's that nothing that they promised was actually put into it. And one of the biggest things that they promised was that the choices you made would affect everything, but the biggest one being the overworld itself. In reality, none of that actually exists here. You mostly just have the illusion of choice because no matter what you pick, it will always lead to the same exact scene or next choice that you have to do. For example, at one time, Sophie asks for your help at a motel and Hakon says, "Hey man, this isn't worth doing." So you get the choice to go between either Peacekeeper or Survivor. The problem with this choice is that it literally does nothing. If you go with the Peacekeepers, they tell you to go to the water tower, and if you go to the Survivors, they also tell you to go to the water tower, and then you get a choice at the water tower. This means that this choice, which has a timer, meaning it's important, does not matter. What's even funnier is that if you go with the Survivors, they give you yet another choice to work with her. This choice also does not matter since this just sends you back to the Peacekeepers to go to the water tower. That's the major problem with this game as a whole and why it's at red. You get bombarded with all these choices that make it seem like it's important, but they all lead back to the same scripted moments. And to be fair, there's only 5 moments in the entire game that dictate the ending, and you will always get to them no matter what happens before. This is pointless choices. But moving on, now we have meh choices, which will be Persona and Dark Souls. Now I know this sounds weird, but you gotta hear me out. Both of these games do give you choices throughout them, but they don't impact things that much. Persona has choices built into its social link, and of course obtaining the many different endings. In terms of social link, the choices themselves really don't matter, but in Persona 3 you can reverse social links or at least freeze them for a little. They used to matter back in the original, but in the reload of course they dimmed it down a little. But the social links themselves don't necessarily matter, it just means how quickly or how many more times you'll need to hang out with them until you reach the next rank. Usually with Persona games, and this is a spoiler alert, you usually just get one choice at the end, or a couple in Persona 5, that will kind of dictate what ending you're going for. This is the same in Dark Souls, where usually you have a couple different endings, and you have to do some stuff throughout it, but it's mostly just kind of a quest line, and then you get the choice at the very end of the game, determining what ending you want. And of course, there's nothing wrong with this. I very much do like the different endings of Dark Souls and how they're kind of very drastic between them. And I love the social link since it lets you bond. But as choices, it's kind of shallow, and you mostly go into the game knowing what ending you're gonna get. Because for Persona, you're probably gonna want to get the true ending. And then for like something like Elden Ring, I kind of already knew I was gonna do Ronnie's quest line. It's not like it's a spur in the moment, I'm making decision kind of thing. Moving on to simple but effective choices, we have Bioshock and Fallout 3. In Bioshock, you have the choice of saving or harvesting little sisters for Adam. While this is a very simple yes or no choice that does affect the ending, it takes it a step further than the games in Meh, because it actually affects the gameplay, of course. Fallout 3 has many different endings based on who you meet or what you choose throughout a couple different major points throughout the game, and based on your overall karma rating. Should clarify, I'm only talking about Fallout 3 and not New Vegas, as New Vegas took it a step further with the reputation between groups and being able to pick a side. But in Fallout 3, the choices are pretty simple just based on who you meet, but overall the same job gets done between them. These are better than the Meh games as the choices are based on the gameplay itself and add a layer of depth to it. Getting the endings feel more personal since you grow attached to your companions as you do the missions, or being stuck between the choice of yourself or others in Bioshock. Moving on, for good choices, and these are kind of like where the choice mechanics really start to get in depth, we have Infamous and Dishonored. These games are a lot like the simple games, but they take it a step further because the choices you make during the gameplay also will affect the future gameplay, and those choices will then affect the ending. Infamous has this system of being good or bad, and with that comes with powers. Decisions that you can make in the side missions and in the main missions can affect exactly what powers you have, and of course some of the evil powers being a lot better than a lot of the good powers. This brings a whole new level of depth, where at one hand you can just be a good person, but you are sacrificing a lot of power to make the gameplay easier. This means that instead of just moral dilemmas, you're also battling with your own gameplay. This also is in Dishonored, where killing people is considered getting the bad ending. But not killing people also makes the gameplay a lot harder. Another big thing is that if you start to kill people, the world itself starts to shape, where the more people you kill, there's more dead rats and it's just a lot more garbage, and it makes the world even worse than it already is. This is even better than the simple games, since you can actually see things shaping and different results happening based on your decisions. This is kind of where you want your game to sit, and where I think a lot of other games could have strived to make it like this. But of course, this isn't easy. And a lot of the times when a decision-making mechanic is introduced, it has to have a lot of depth in it. Otherwise, it's going to come across as really cheap and it's just going to disappoint people, like as we saw with Dying Light 2. Moving on to our last category, which is having great choices, we go on to the game that actually gave me the inspiration to make this video, that being Lies of P. Having recently finished this game, it just felt amazing, and besides it just being a really good video game, I found myself just being stuck at a choice, just not knowing what to pick. And because of this, I actually got the bad ending, which is probably what the game wanted. I'm not going to get into any spoilers here, but all I know is that they tell you a lot of things and you're just kind of supposed to make your own opinion about it. Of course, decisions is kind of the whole marketing of the game, so of course making decisions even with side characters do affect exactly how their storylines go, and a lot of storylines can just be ended short if you don't make the right call. This also relates to the two endings of the game, or well, three. While I do think the endings could be a little bit better and a good way to wrap it up at the end, they're still very good and very powerful, and they really just change your entire view on just everything you ever did up to that point. To wrap it all up, a great choice mechanic would make even the smallest choices feel impactful and really make you think about what you would do in that scenario. Of course, this is all just what I think, and if you have any more thoughts, ideas, or disagree, please let me know down below and I'm more than happy to talk about it. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. See you guys later.